Welcome back. It's been only 5 days since John Bolton's book, The Room Where It Happened, hit bookstores. In that time, President Trump has called his former national security advisor a fool, crazy, and someone who just wanted to drop bombs on everyone. Bolton has dropped some verbal bombs of his own, saying Mr. Trump is easily duped by our adversaries, is unfit for office, and has used his power as president for personal gain. Well, joining me now is the author of said book, John Bolton. Ambassador Bolton, welcome back to Meet the Press, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Well, before we get to the substance of your book, I want to get to what we've just learned over the last 48 hours. There's some reporting this weekend that reported by the New York Times, that an arm of Russian military intelligence has secretly been paying bounties to Taliban-linked militias to kill American and other coalition forces in Afghanistan. There's a lot we don't know. The U.S. government has not confirmed or denied the intelligence report. They have only simply denied that the president was informed in March of this. I'm just curious of your initial reaction to this report, Ambassador.
Well, it's, as you say, there's a lot we don't know, so we should be cautious. But from what we do know from the president's own tweets this morning, to me it looks like just another day at the office in the Trump White House. I've never recalled a circumstance where the president himself goes out of his way to say he wasn't briefed on something. We may be in the, what the definition of is here. When you say briefed, does that mean he's never been told of anything about it? We don't know the quality of the intelligence or the extent of it. If it does go back to March, that raises other questions. And the key point is, if there's any accuracy to it, if the Russians have actually been paying to see Americans killed, that is a very, very serious matter.
I'm just curious, if there was an intelligence assessment like this, can you imagine a scenario where it is withheld from the president? I mean, that part of this just seems extraordinarily hard to believe. Is it not for you?
Well, again, it depends on what the level of confidence in the intelligence is. I tried during my tenure at the White House to read as much intelligence as I could. That doesn't mean I passed all of it on to Trump or to others. I think it's just important to understand there needs to be a filter for any president, maybe particularly for this president. So there's obviously more to this story, but it is pretty remarkable the president's going out of his way to say he hasn't heard anything about it. One asks, why would he do something like that? And I think the answer may be precisely because active Russian aggression like that against the American service members is a very, very serious matter, and nothing's been done about it, if it's true, for these past 4 or 5 months. So it may look like he was negligent, but of course he can disown everything if nobody ever told him about it.
Let me ask you this: Do you think that part of that the president is afraid to make Putin mad because maybe Putin did help him win the election and he doesn't want to make him mad for 2020?
Honestly, I don't think there's evidence for that. And I think it's a mistake, on the one hand, to say the Russia collusion theory was true, which some opponents of Trump still can't let go of.
I'm not saying collusion,
versus
but Ambassador,
Trump
I'm not
himself,
saying collusion.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Versus the Donald Trump approach, which is the Russians didn't do anything at all in the election. I think it's clear from all the data, and it's been discussed publicly, of course the Russians tried to interfere in the 2016 election, and they're going to try and do it again this year, as will the Chinese and maybe the Iranians and the North Koreans. That's why during the Trump administration, whether the president was fully cognizant of it or not, the agencies and departments charged with trying to prevent that worked very hard to increase our defenses. So why is the president so defensive about Putin? As I say, I don't read anything into it necessarily. If I had evidence, I would reveal it. I just don't know what to say other than he likes dealing with strong authoritarian figures.
You've made it clear that you think the president's unfit for office. Do you think a second term of Donald Trump is an existential threat to the country?
I'm very worried about it. Look, I think damage has been done in the first term. I lay it out in the book as I see it. But I believe America can recover from one term of Donald Trump. I believe that very, very strongly. I'm more worried about a second term, and it's not just decisions in the national security space. I'm worried about the corruption of the civil discourse in this country. by a president who says the sorts of things that you quoted at the outset of our discussion. I think it degrades the body politic. There are plenty of other people doing the same thing, don't get me wrong, but I just think it's unpresidential to behave that way, and that will have serious consequences.
Let me ask you about briefly about the impeachment and your decision not to testify. This week, the New Yorker profiled Fiona Hill, who was the National Security Council's Russia director during most of your tenure, who did testify during the House impeachment investigation. And there was this anecdote in there, Ambassador. After Hill's testimony, Bolton asked Sarah Tinsley, a longtime aide, to relay a personal message. You did the right thing. If it was the right thing for Fiona Hill, sir, why wasn't it the right thing for you?
Because I was in a very different circumstance. You know, my deputy, Charlie Kupperman, was subpoenaed by the House. He was directed by the White House not to testify. He went to court. You know, you got the one branch, the legislative branch, saying do one thing, the executive branch saying another. He went to the judicial branch to get an answer, and the House of Representatives withdrew their subpoena. Look, I've written in the book, I think the House advocates of impeachment committed impeachment malpractice. I think they played right into Donald Trump's strategy and lost a real opportunity by creating a partisan issue when they might have gotten some Republicans who could have helped out. And by the end of the process, I think everybody, including on the Republican side, believed that there was a quid pro quo in Ukraine. But the House effort didn't take into account the possibility that the White House would argue successfully that even if it were true, it didn't rise to the level of an impeachable offense. I think there was another way to do this. We saw it in Watergate, where there was bipartisan cooperation. You know, if I were one of those who had advocated impeachment in the House, I'd be looking for other people to blame at the moment too.
Final question is, you've made a case that a second term of Donald Trump will be really damaging. You have said, though, that you cannot support a Joe Biden candidacy. What is worse, in your mind, a second Trump term or a first term of Joe Biden?
You know, it's a comparison of apples and oranges. I'm very unhappy, and I don't think I'm untypical of a lot of conservative Republicans who really wish there was a conservative Republican on the ballot. Some will vote for Joe Biden. I respect that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to write in the name of a conservative Republican. I think others will probably just not vote at the presidential level at all. It's not an easy choice. It's not a happy choice, and I wish there were an alternative. Maybe one will come. I don't see it, but that's where we are at the moment.
And you have said that you really want to focus on helping Republicans keep the Senate. George Will, who I know you're very familiar with, has argued that Senate Republicans have enabled Donald Trump too much and they are part of the problem. What do you say to his critique?
Well, I have enormous respect for George Will and have over the years. Look, this is part of, I think, the damage to the political system that Donald Trump has done, that everything has been torqued around Donald Trump personally. I think politics is about philosophy. And that's why I think ultimately it is critical for the Republic that Republicans keep the majority in the Senate, whether Trump wins or loses.
Ambassador Bolton, I have to leave it there. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective. Your book has made quite the splash, and I have a feeling it may linger for some time. So good luck out there.
Well, thanks very much.
Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.